Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. Today we're going to do something that's 46 years in the making for me, and it may be something that none of you have ever heard of before, and that is a DBX encoded vinyl record. Now DBX was a system that was used on tape that was a noise reduction system, and it helped to kind of compress and expand and give you a wider dynamic range on the recordings. They eventually moved that to vinyl records, and they're actually pretty incredible. Now the thing that makes this extra neat is that this particular record, which was recorded in 1978, was actually produced on a 16-bit digital recording and then transferred to the DBX disc from that digital recording. Yep, they had digital in 1978, and it's a system that I'd never even heard of before. So we're not going to get into technical details. We're going to talk a little bit more broadly about DBX discs and that digital system that this particular album was recorded on. Then we'll take a listen to it. Stay tuned. So there were two things that really intrigued me when I started doing my research for the DBX disc. It's something I kind of remember being in the stores. You didn't see them very often, and I was really young at the time. But I remember seeing the albums that had a little sticker on them that said DBX encoded or DBX disc on them. And it kind of intrigued me, but I didn't know what it was, and it wasn't until much, much later that I started hearing more and more about them. Well, as I was looking for one to purchase for this video, I came across this one. Now, classical isn't really my style of music, but there were a couple of words on here that really stood out to me. One of them was digital, and the other was that it actually tells you how the album was recorded on the back. Then I'll kind of put some of this stuff up on the screen for you. But what this says is, it's called Beyond the Sound Barrier, the Spectacular Sound of Digital DBX Discs. Now, this album's from 1980, and according to the back of the album here, it was recorded in 1978. And as I get to reading this, it says that for all sessions on this album, it was recorded with Soundstream 16-bit digital system, and it was used by the same balance engineer. It says what microphones were used. AKG models 414, 451 EB, mixed through an Allen and Heath Modular 2 console. So they went into detail to tell you how it was recorded and what it was recorded with. The thing that stood out to me was that Soundstream 16-bit digital system. Now, I've never heard of that before, so I had to do a little bit of digging to find out what that was. And apparently, Soundstream was a company that in 1977 developed this Soundstream digital recording. And what they did was they designed their own equipment, but they used a modified Honeywell 5600E instrumentation transport, and then they had the analog and digital circuitry that they built to go along with it. Now that tape ran at like 30 or 35 inches per second over multiple heads to capture all this data, but it ended up being, I believe, a 4-track digital recording that they were able to make in 1977, 1978. And that's what ended up on this disc. For DBX, they use the original master tapes most of the time, so this comes directly from that digital master. Now that digital system, the Soundstream 16-bit, from what I can find, has better than a 90 decibel signal-to-noise ratio, less than 0.004% total harmonic distortion, very, very low, unmeasurable wow and flutter, of course, because it's digital, and a frequency response that's flat from 0 hertz all the way up to 21 kilohertz. So, I mean, a pretty good digital recording system, even by the standards of today. You know, if you look at a CD, that's what, 48,000 samples per second, where this one's 50,000. Their own DACs and analog to digital converters and everything that they used in this was just fascinating to me. So in the course of trying to play a DBX disc, I actually ended up finding a digital recording method that I'd never even heard of. There's not a whole lot of information on this on the internet that I can find. So if anybody has more info, or you used one or worked with one, make sure to tell us about it in the comments. I'm fascinated by this. Now on to the album itself. DBX, and I'm not going to get into technical details here because there are plenty of videos that go into that ad nauseum, but it was kind of aimed at audiophiles, and I don't think audiophiles ended up really embracing it. In 1981, they had called for, there being 200 encoded discs, and now it looks like there might have ended up being about 1,000. So they made quite a few albums that were encoded with it, but audiophiles didn't care for it because, it was kind of an artificial, companding and compression and expansion that happened with it. And they said they could hear it breathe and some other anomalies in it. Well, to me, because I'm not an audiophile, and I think most, average people listening to these discs, they sound absolutely amazing. Now, I'll put a graphic on the screen that kind of shows how this works, but the easiest way to put it is, it's kind of like taking your audio recording and putting it in a vacuum bag and sucking all the air out so that you've got everything compressed down as it goes onto the disc. And the same thing for the tape system that they used. Once it gets on the disc plays it, and then the decoder takes that and basically pumps the air back into it. So it goes from, a standard album of maybe 60 decibels signal to noise ratio up to 90 or 100 with the DBX disc. So it makes the softer parts softer, louder parts louder, and they sound incredible. And it actually ends up taking some of the pops and crackles off of the disc. Now, the thing that I'm, finding incredible about this is I don't have a very nice turntable at all. I don't listen to a lot of vinyl records. I'm more of a tape guy. So, I could probably use a new stylus on this one, new cartridge. It's not the highest quality unit in the world, but I've just got my old Pioneer running through a Fosi Audio phono preamp that I did a video on last week, and into my DBX decoder, and I'll end up playing a direct capture of this for you so you can hear it. It's actually pretty amazing. Now, I know on YouTube you're probably not going to get the full extent of the recording. It's not going to sound as good as it does to me, but it's definitely one of those things that I think you have to hear. So let's do that now. Let's play some selections from this album for you. Now, the setup to play a DBX disc is pretty simple. You just need your turntable, some type of a phono preamp, and then a DBX decoder, which is what this particular unit is. Now, this is an encoder and decoder. I can actually use this with one of my open reel decks, or even a cassette deck if I wanted to encode DBX to a tape and then play it back. This one actually also has functionality for the DBX disc, which is what we're going to be using today, and it does have an adjustment here for the play level so that you can get everything calibrated properly. But not only does it give us a pretty light show when it's playing, but it does all of the decoding right here in the box. I'm going to take the output from this directly into my Motu M2 digital capture device and capture a live playback from this device so you guys can hear what it sounds like. I think you'll be pretty impressed. Now, I know in our current age of digital music, it can be really hard to appreciate how great an album like this sounds. I mean, now we have excellent quality music coming from just about every device that we own, and it can be hard to really think back in time to a point where we didn't have that luxury. You know, these are incredible discs, and I'm really surprised they didn't take off more than they really did. And I know not everybody had a DBX decoder in their stereo system set up, and some people couldn't afford one or didn't want to buy one, and I can understand that. But you know, I think if more people would have actually heard what these sounded like, they probably would have been a lot more popular. I mean, taking a recording, compressing it 2-to-1, sending that to a decoder that then decompressed everything, made it sound amazing, and on top of that got rid of some of the pops and clicks and background record noise and surface noise. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I mean, even on my old worn out turntable, I think the recording sounded amazing. Now, I'll put some more information about these up on the screen as we end here, just so you can see a little bit more about what they have on the inside of these albums that tell you a lot more about the DBX process and what it really means. It's an incredible piece of technology that I think was forgotten, or in many cases not really even known about. You know, it's something, like I said, that I saw in the stores when I was younger, but then completely forgot about. It wasn't until a couple of years ago that I was reintroduced to DBX and the DBX disc and finally got to hear one. So if you have any stories about hearing these back when they came out, be sure to leave those in the comments. There's not very many people out there, I don't think, that really had experience with this when it came out. So if you heard one of these, compare that to what you were listening to at the time on a regular basis, whether it was a standard record or cassette tapes or reel-to-reel. You know, what was your experience with it? What did you think about it? Did you own a system after that? I'm curious to see how many people out there actually enjoyed these when they were new. Well, that's about all I have for this week. Just a quick short video on DBX. Like I said, it wasn't going to be an in-depth thing. There's plenty of technical stuff out there for all of the audio nerds and audiophiles. I just wanted to let you experience it like I just did here in the studio. So I appreciate you all coming along for the ride. Christmas is coming up, the holidays, so if I don't see you before the holidays get here, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you next time here on Vintage Electronics Channel. Happy listening.